What's up, everybody? How's it going? It's me again, little growth group video action for you. I am sitting in the warehouse, the exact space where we have had such a busy weekend and this past weekend, and just being, yeah, it's kind of like always, I don't know, it's an up and down thing. Um, Super excited about how things went, and then it's kind of like, no one's here. That's kind of sad, but no, it's all good. We're just so excited about how God moved over the weekend. Busy weekend, week 2 of our series, Change Your World in 52 Days, and had some fun with Celebrate the Arts on Saturday night. Had the Ballet 5/8 folks here, which was super awesome, and had about 12 artists displaying their work here as well. It's just so cool to have artwork up in the warehouse in a big way this weekend. And then the messages, the message and the services from this weekend talked a little bit about how Nehemiah really saw himself as a servant first and foremost, and then talked about how he was also a sinner and had to deal with that as well. So I talked a little bit about, in the beginning of my message, how I had some dreams when I was young about being an animator for Disney and drawing comic books or being an architect, all that stuff, and none of that happened. And here I am now, and so there's just like expectations sometimes that we have, and they don't come around. And so I guess the first question that I'd love for you guys to dive into with your group is this one. What did you want to be when you were younger? What did you want to be when you grew up? What did you want to do? What types of things were you interested in? And then the follow-up to that would be, how'd that go? How did that go? So you wanted to be, an astronaut. Are you an astronaut? I mean, if there is somebody that I'm talking to right now that's an astronaut, I mean, I want to know. I want to hang out. I want to go fly around or something. All right. So right now, just talk about, what did you want to be when you grew up? When you would grow up? When you grew up? I don't know how I'm saying that. And how did that go? All right. So pause the video now. All right. So this next conversation we need to have is about this pesky idea that I've brought up several times at Second Place, and I brought it up again this weekend. And it's this idea that, for me, I sometimes find myself feeling sorry for myself or feeling bad about kind of how I'm doing, and I kind of get down and, I should be doing more. I should be, making a bigger difference or whatever. And then I read Nehemiah, and I see the way that he talks about himself and the way that he refers to himself as a servant. And in the phrase that I brought up again this weekend that I brought up before is that sometimes we see ourselves as a sinner, as a sinner that needs to be saved, rather than a servant that sins. And you might hear some kids in the background. That's our child care center. What up? So I feel like for me, transitioning from really seeing myself as identifying myself with my sin as a sinner, and then moving to seeing myself as God's child, as somebody who has purpose and hope, and God's plan is unfolding in my life, and all that living out of that versus waking up every morning feeling like I am my sin, or I am a mistake, or what have you. So there's shame and guilt and all that stuff that kind of flows through and all up in that. And so here's the question. When you start your day, do you consider yourself and think of yourself as a servant of God first and foremost? Do you think of that first? I wake up, okay, God, I'm serving you today, and here we go. Or do you Do you tend to feel like, man, I focus on where I'm falling short so much, not where I'm winning or not where God's moving, not where maybe where God's speaking, but I focus on the fact that I'm falling short so much. Talk about that, but talk about, those are really yes or no questions. Ask the question this way too. Why do we do that? Why do we feel that way? Or why do we focus on being a servant or how we fall short? Go ahead and pause the video, talk about that right now. Right now. Do it. Okay, now we are going. I feel like I'm creating an episode of like some like flashbacks of Blue's Clues or something. Like I don't know why I'm doing these things, but now we're going to talk about a passage from Scripture. It's not Nehemiah. Woohoo! We're going to be diving into a passage, 1 Peter 4, verses 10 and 11. 1 Peter 4, verses 10 and 11. And then I just would love you to talk through that one. That one kind of talks about how and why we serve and how we can serve God and what the purpose of that is. So I'd love for you to talk about that one. And then I'm going to give you some work to do. I'm going to have you look up a passage and find the location of where Jesus says that the Son of God did not come to be served, but to serve. And just talk about that idea that what does that verse say to you? You know, probably going to need to Google it. It might need to maybe somebody in your group knows where Jesus said that. But look up those two verses. One I'm giving you, 1 Peter 4, 10 and 11. And then the second one is to search and find where Jesus says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. All right, and then talk about those and kind of what those implications are. Cool? All right, pause the video right now. Pause it. Are you guys finally ready for the next part? Ready for the next question? Are you done talking about those scriptures? Okay, good. I'm sure that it was very good and it was awesome. I appreciate that. I will turn my hat back around. So that passage in 1 Peter, so good, right? And I want us to, if you're doing the soul workouts, you may have done a little bit of work in this area, which is perfect because you can talk about what you wrote down when you did this workout. But if not, no problem, because it's a pretty it's a good conversation starter. So when you look at that verse, those verses in 1 Peter 4, 10 and 11, it talks about serving, talks about gifts, that everyone's received the gift, talks about that God is the one who strengthens us. And so I want to throw a question. It's kind of a series of questions, but they're all centered around that verse. Number one, how do you see other people serving God? What do you notice about people who are serving? What are they doing when they're serving God? And then, how are you serving God? Like, how do you see yourself serving God? When you are going through your day during the week, how do you serve God? What gifts has He given you? What gifts has He given you? You can go around the room and just share what it is that you feel like the gifts that God has given you. And if you don't feel like you know, or you don't feel like you have any, well, you can say that too. What strengths has He given you? You go around the room and talk about the strengths that He's given you. Maybe a little different than gifts. Maybe it's just a time in your life when God strengthened you. Maybe that's another way to talk about that. So what strengths has God given you? And then lastly, the thing that I talked about is really when we see ourselves as a servant of God, when we give our lives over to Christ, He kind of enlightens or awakens a mission in us, something that we uniquely have to change the world, something that we would walk 50 miles for, something that we would say, you know what, somebody ought to do something about this. It might as well be me. And that would be the last part of this, is what mission do you think that God may be awakening inside you? So I know that's a lot, but it's really where and how do you see yourself and others serving? What gifts has He given you? What strengths has He given you? And what mission might He be sending you on? Maybe just initial thoughts about that. All right, pause the video and get after it. All right, here's the last thing I'm going to have you do. I think it would be great for us together to pray. Pray, go around the room and just take a few minutes to, now that you've shared your gifts and strengths and maybe some of your mission, some of how you're serving, I think it would be cool to just pray together. And maybe you could have the first person pray and thank God for the gifts that have been shared in your group. The second person could pray and thank God for the strengths that have been shared in your group. The third person could go and thank God for the missions that have been shared in your group. And so as each person prays, maybe they can just have maybe just jot down those gifts again, those strengths and those calls, those missions, and be able to just name them. I think it's powerful when we name them in prayer to God, to say, God, thank you for the gift of encouragement that this person has, or thank you for the gift of kindness that this person has. Thank you for the gift of cooking or fixing cars or whatever it might be. Being able to name those is super important, I think, and really being specific with God to say this is what we're thankful for. The gifts, the strengths, and the missions, and really just praying that God would continue to grow those in you and your group and those in your group, and that God would continue to clarify the mission that He has for each one of you, that it's a unique call. Some of the calls that God has on your life, they're going to connect. Some of them won't, but it's okay because we can cheer each other on and make it happen together. So I'm excited for your group. Great job getting to group this week. I'm going to go ahead and leave that with you, and I'm going to pray for your group right now, just quickly, and then we'll sign off. So God, I thank you for all the groups that are meeting, and God, I pray that you would awaken the gifts and strengths and mission that you have in each person, and we thank you for doing that in Jesus' name. So good job, guys, getting out there this week. We are so pumped to be in week 2 and so excited for week 3 to be coming up. I'm signing off here from Second Place Warehouse, the dance floor, the spot where people were sitting on Sunday, different setup, but man, we are thankful for you guys. We love you guys, and you guys are doing great work by getting out to group and continuing to grow your faith. We'll see you very soon. Bye.